Good evening, excuse me, and welcome to the Foxborough Zoning Board of Appeals, October 19, 2023 meeting. This meeting and the hearings that we will be considering is being broadcast and recorded by Foxborough Cable Access. I'd like to acknowledge and welcome to the board our newest member, Eric Hogburg. Thank you. We look forward to your joining us and working with you. And thanks to your wife and Kurt's wife for bringing you to our attention.
Thank you.
But welcome.
Happy to be here.
Welcome.
Thanks.
Welcome. Yes. Okay, so the Foxborough Zoning Board of Appeals will hold a meeting. Wait, I don't even read that. Okay, do I read the first thing?
No, the time being.
Here, okay, the time being 7 o'clock. Scott M. Lebow, requests a variance pursuant to the Code of the Town of Foxborough, Massachusetts, Chapter 275, Zoning, Section 4.1.1, Table 4-1, to allow the construction of an addition garage to a pre-existing non-conforming dwelling with a side yard setback of 13 feet where 15 feet is required. The property is located at 4 Sherwood Ave in the R40 Residential and Agricultural District and is not located in any restrictive overlay district.
Good evening. Attorney Frank Splain here, representing the applicant and owner, Scott Lebow. With us also this evening is his wife, Karen. Again, the property address is 4 Sherwood Avenue, which is located off of Beach Street and Wayne Drive. And Wayne Drive is located off of Mechanic Street. It's located within the R40 zoning district. The applicant is requesting a variance again from section 4.4.4 and table 4.1 to allow a side yard of 13 feet where 15 feet is required, again, for construction of addition to the existing single-family dwelling, which is located on a pre-existing non-conforming lot. The dwelling was built in 1955 prior to zoning. It was purchased by the Lebows in 2002, and in 2017, Lebows did a renovation to the house to its existing condition. The existing single-family dwelling is a conforming structure with the front yard, side yard, and rear yard all meeting required side yards. The lot, however, is a pre-existing non-conforming lot because the lot has an area of 15,000 square feet, where 40,000 square feet is required. The frontage is 100 feet, where 200 feet is required, and the lot width is 92 feet, where 130 feet is required. So again, the lot is pre-existing non-conforming. The existing structure has a habitable floor area of approximately 1,536 square feet per the assessor's card, with 768 square feet on both the first and second floor. The applicant, again, is requesting a variance to allow the construction of an addition to the existing dwelling, which will contain a mudroom and garage on the first floor and a 458 square foot family room and deck, a roof deck on the second floor. The addition to the single family dwelling on the lot will cause it to have a 13-foot side yard, again, where 15 feet is required. The area of the proposed addition, which will be within the side yard setback, is approximately 25 square feet, being 2 feet within the side yard at the closest point at the front of the addition, and decreasing as the addition extends closer to the rear yard for approximately 24 feet, until the addition is 15 feet from the side yard at the very rear of the addition. The exterior of the addition will match the exterior of the existing dwelling. The applicant has spoken with the neighbor directly abutting where the addition is going on or being proposed, and they are in full support of the proposed addition and have no problem with the reduced side yard setback. He has also spoken with other neighbors in the neighborhood, and they have all spoken in support of the proposal. All of the lots in the general area of Sherwood Avenue, as well as Wayne Drive and Mechanic Street in that area, as well as the development across the street from Mechanic Street from Wayne Drive, are all pre-existing non-conforming lots with lack of area, frontage, and width. And some of the structures also are pre-existing non-conforming for a lack of side yards of one or another. The proposed addition with a minimum side yard encroachment will not be unusual for the area and will not in no way be a detriment to the neighborhood. As the board knows, in order for a variance to be approved, there are three requirements. The first being owing to a circumstance relating to the soil condition, shape, or topography of the land or structure, and especially affecting that land, but not affecting the zoning district that is located. The existing unique conditions relating to the shape of the lot provides the first requirement for granting the variance. The shape of the lot and its unique character and special circumstances support the variance. The lot, again, which is pre-existing non-conforming in area, frontage, and lot, is irregular in shape as the lot tapers from the front lot line to the rear lot line. So in the front, it has 100 feet of frontage. In the rear, it has 87 feet of the rear lot line. And the side yard line also run diagonally from Sherwood Avenue to the rear of the lot. One of the things I asked the surveyor for Bay Colony is if the rear lot line, a side yard where the proposed addition was being proposed to be constructed, was brought forward straight at a 90-degree angle, would we meet the side yard requirement? And he indicated yes. There'd be enough room for 2 more feet there. So that causes it. And if you look at the assessor's map, and this is just me eyeballing it and looking at it, it looks to me that in order to get the lots in that area with a couple of corner lots, that's why they diagonalized it. All of those lots have 100 feet and 15,000 square feet of area at a minimum. So in order to get, I'm sure, the lots that they wanted, they, as most surveyors and engineers will do, move the lot lines to get what they need. So because of the irregular shape of the lot and the unique circumstances, special circumstances of this lot, we feel that we meet that first requirement. The second requirement is a little enforcement of the provision of the bylaw would involve substantial hardship, financial or otherwise, to the petitioner. As I know the board knows, where mere dimensional variances are involved, the court and this board have stated that a relative minor hardship can justify a variance because they do not change the character of the zoning district. Again, that's a mere dimensional variance, which is what we're requesting. Without the requested variance, the applicant will have to expend significant funds to angle the addition to comply with the 15-foot side yard, which would involve substantial hardship to the applicant that could be avoided with the requested variance. The angled addition would also look odd next to the existing house and would impact the design and function of the addition and would not be visually and aesthetically pleasing because it would be at an angle as where the front of the house is straight on to the property. Therefore, the second requirement, we think, is met because the applicant will require to expend significant funds to comply with the side yard setback and would otherwise be prevented from making use of the property for the purposes and manner in which allowed under the zoning ordinance. And again, the final requirement is without substantial detriment to the public good. We feel that the minor degree to which the variance will violate the side yard setback. Again, just 25 square feet will be in the setback. And the fact that desired relief will enhance the property as well as the neighborhood indicates that the granting the variance will not be a detriment to the public good and will not nullify or substantially derogate from the intent of the purpose. As a matter of fact, we think this will really enhance the neighborhood as well as the structure. And I know I provided the board with just a couple of similar cases that the board has reviewed in the past.
Frank, the mudroom would consist of what? Just a empty
I'm sorry?
space? The mudroom itself, is that empty space?
It would be basically a mudroom where we would probably have some cubbies or a bench and hooks. I did try to, I wanted that to be a larger space and be able to use it as a sunroom or something to that effect, but I had to bring it in to try to minimize that encroachment. And so it's really an entrance off the driveway, a cut through to the backyard, and probably just cubbies and a bench and some coat hooks, because that's all.
So you're not putting washing machine, dryer in there?
No, our laundry's in the basement.
Okay.
There's no room for much else.
Will it be heated?
It'll be conditioned, yes.
My question was, you kind of answered it as far as minimizing the issue there by, you already had changed the size of your initial plan by making the mudroom smaller?
Sure, yeah. I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, yep, sorry.
I mean, I started designing this probably 10 or 12 years ago, and that was, 10 feet wide at one point, right? Because I wanted it to be sort of a sunroom kind of space, but just realizing, how much I would be encroaching, I realized it wasn't realistic. So I reeled it back in to 8 feet, and then even at 8 feet, I still felt like I was encroaching too much. So I brought it in to 7 feet, which is not optimal because construction materials work in 2-foot increments. So there's going to be waste there for me to even do 7 feet, but really anything much less than that becomes really impractical use.
And then there's the garage, right? So is that a 2-car garage?
It's 2-car,
Two
yes.
doors as well?
2-door, yes.
And you couldn't move that in any further, is what you're saying?
I could. There's a couple of challenges. One is that the standard garage size for these days is 24 by 24. So I'm hoping to have a 24-foot width. I have a large car, so we have trash barrels, lawnmowers, all those sorts of things. So when you start to become less than 24 feet, you begin to create conditions where car doors are hitting the walls or each other. Also, you'll notice at the back of the garage, there's an angled component, and I'm doing that so that I don't have to modify my deck, because then that becomes another additional cost. And so when you have that angled component and then get narrower, that left bay becomes really space challenged.
Thank you. Mind if I take a look at this?
Yeah. Kurt, excuse me, Kurt, questions?
So when you say you've been designing this, I see a site plan. Do you have like any kind of drawings or elevations or renderings or anything?
We submitted the drawings.
Do you want to?
I didn't see it.
Kim, go ahead.
Yes, I have a couple questions. Are you planning on having any water in either the garage, running water in either the garage or in the family room?
No, there's no water service intended.
Okay, no water. And how, are you keeping the existing driveway? I'm just trying to get a sense of where I drove by.
The driveway will shift.
Okay,
So right now, the driveway is sort of right off the corner, the bottom right corner of the house.
okay,
So it will shift over that 7 feet to align with the new garage,
okay.
but it'll be the same size.
Okay, great. And, let me see. And so on the property, when I was driving by, there are 2 trees that were there. Are those staying, not staying? They were
Those
all-
2 trees will unfortunately have to come out, because they are essentially in the middle of the driveway.
Okay,
Yeah.
I'm just trying to place it with the plans and
Yep.
what I saw when I drove by. Keeping existing driveway.
And I presume it's slab on grade for the garage area and the mudroom area?
Correct.
And the materials that you've chosen, I presume, will be in keeping in context with your home and the neighborhood?
Yes, absolutely.
Any further?
All set.
Eric, any further questions?
You mentioned that you had spoken with the neighbors, the directly abutting that portion of your property, and they were in support as well as others. Did anybody that you spoke to have any opposition to this?
No one that I spoke with had any objection. In fact, Bernie Cullen, who's the direct abutter on that side, his exact words were, "What the hell else are we going to do with that land?"
And this is showing the mudroom at 8 feet, so is it now down to 7?
It's 7. Does it show it at 8?
Yeah.
Yeah, on the plans, it shows us at 8.
That might be, I might have printed the wrong drawings, but if you look at the engineering drawing, it's 7 feet. I don't know if you dimensioned it. Yeah, I apologize. I printed the wrong drawing. It's 7 feet.
Yeah, if you look up here, you can see the 7 feet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, any other questions? Does anybody wish to be heard? All right, nobody on Zoom. A motion to close the public portion, Kim?
Move to close the public portion.
Kurt, second it?
Second.
Okay, all in favor? All right, I don't have much voice, so you want to start?
Yes, I do think that this will enhance the property and the neighborhood. And I certainly can see that they're here with the request due to the shape of the lot, which was created prior to zoning bylaws. So I'm certainly open to hearing what my fellow board members have to say, but I'm already leaning one way.
Kurt, any comments?
Well, I'm with you on the three conditions, the site conditions, you're right. The no detriment to public good, I would agree with that as well. The hardship, I'm not so sure about, but I think that I'm with you on the number 1 and number 3 of those. That's really all the comments that I have.
Eric?
Just as far as the hardship, I just didn't see a lot as it related to that, but otherwise, I don't have any further comment.
So you're saying that you don't see the hardship?
I don't necessarily see the hardship, no.
Yeah. My initial reaction was that although the lot is somewhat irregular, it's not, unique to Foxborough. In fact, there are several lots in my own neighborhood that have the same irregularity. I do acknowledge, and it's reflective of the two cases that Mr. Spillane provided us with, that we have in the past approved variances for similar reasons relative to the, to the shape as you've, posited here. I can think of two of my own neighbors that we, and I did not sit on those matters, but two of my own neighbors that we approved in similar situations for, for garages. However, where I have a difficult time agreeing that the criteria has been met as far as the variances, as far as the, the hardship. The reason you're 31 feet into the setback is, or 31 feet from the present house, going east, is because of really the 7-foot mudroom. You could shave that down a couple of feet and still have a garage of the size you want, and still have a family room of the size that you want. So I have trouble at this point, although I could be convinced otherwise, that there would be a substantial hardship that enforcement of the zoning bylaw, and literal enforcement of the zoning bylaw would cause substantial hardship to you. Again, I think the mudroom is not the primary room as far as what you're, desiring. What you're desiring really is a 2-car garage with a new family room. And I think in that respect, the mudroom can be shaved down a little bit further and still allow you to have most of what you want, pretty much what you want, and not be a violation of the bylaw. Kim?
Okay, yes, very, very interesting, and we're certainly, if that were to be the direction that we would move in, we're certainly not interfering at all with the property owner using their property for the purposes that they're actually looking for, which is the garage and the additional living space on the second floor. We're talking about the 7 feet.
That could be cut down to 5 feet, or some other combination of decreasing. I mean, theoretically, the garage could be cut down by a foot or a half a foot. But in order to give him a garage at the dimensions that he would like, and the family room at the dimensions that he would like, I think it's the mudroom that would need to be.
And that's not necessarily for us to decide either, right?
Correct.
It's certainly something that the applicant could go back and figure out for themselves.
Of course, this total extension in the easterly direction is, excuse me, I apologize, is 31 feet. If it was 29 feet, there wouldn't be a need for a variance.
Right.
Mr. Chairman, could we speak?
Yeah, of course.
Okay, all right. You know, one of those variances, and I'm sure you know about other cases, these are just cases I had in my office, you know, brought the side yard down to, 10 feet in order to get what they wanted. We worked to get this down as minimal as possible. You know, it's a very minor encroachment. It starts at 2 feet and goes back until it's 0, a couple feet before the end of the structure. So it's a very minimal encroachment. Whereas in other cases, you've allowed much larger encroachments in order for the people to get what they wanted, where this board could have said, you can, cut it down here, there, or however. We feel this is a very minor request in order to have, again, just a mudroom, which is not uncommon to have a area, going from your garage before you get into the main house, to throw all your things, and cutting that down by another 2 feet, again, changes the design, as Scott has indicated, with the deck and with the cut, and will encroach upon the use of the garage with regard to putting, the cars in. But again, my main focus is that it's such a minor encroachment, whereas some of these other cases encroached it much more significantly, these to, down to 10 feet or even less than that. So, we feel that we've met the requirements. Again, the applicant has, brought these down. When they first came to me, it was a little bit even more. I told them, see what you can do to work it down. And it's so minor. Again, 25 square feet, starting with 2 feet at the front, and it just goes smaller and smaller as you go back. So we feel the fact that it's such a minor one, and these other decisions some were much more encroachment within it, and that none of the neighbors have any issues with it, that we do meet all the requirements.
And I would just add that, I don't disagree that there are options that I could choose to get to be compliant. And, making the mudroom smaller seems like a simple choice. And yes, the family room is the important component, and the garage is the important component, but that mudroom was a important component for us as well. And it's gotten, like I said, it's gotten smaller than what we wanted it to be. We wanted it to be a room. It's no longer really a room. But it is an opportunity for us to have large glass doors in the back that are going to bring more light into the house, which is, these older houses have few windows. So I really feel like we've really pinched it down to the minimum that will really allow for it to serve the purposes that we intend to use it.
Tim, thoughts?
I mean, to be honest with you, one of the things I feel is if we just came in with a bigger garage and it was just, 10 feet off, instead of 13 feet, that you might be more inclined to approve it just because it's the bigger garage that he wants for one reason or another. The fact that, he has a little mudroom as a transition from the garage into the house, is a little bit of a detriment. And again, it's such a minor variance. And again, the courts and this board has stated that where mere dimensional variances are involved, relative minor hardship can justify the variance. And I think this is, whether it's a minor hardship or not, it's a hardship. It could be a minor one, but since this is a dimensional variance and a very minor one, I think it could be considered that.
Well, most variances that we deal with are dimensional, so, to say that it's minor, when you look at the entire bylaw requirement and the fact that one of them is substantial hardship, really, we're weighing, the factors here. And where I'm coming from is, and I think, Kim was correct, it's not our responsibility to change the design. So it's not our responsibility to say, you should be 5 feet, with the mudroom. But you're extending 31 feet, in an easterly direction, and that's causing you to need a variance. If you were extending 29 feet, you wouldn't need a variance. You still have the opportunity to develop the additional space. It may not be as large as what you're initially intending, but you still have the opportunity to develop the additional space and to utilize it in the manner that you wish. But I'm just one of 4 people here, and I'm one of 4 people without a voice, or losing a voice.
I have a question. I don't want to work backwards here, but I hadn't seen these before, the plans. Is the, where it goes from the mudroom to the stairs that go up to the room upstairs, is that open? Or is there planned to be a door?
The stair right now would be open.
Okay, and then the door to the garage is on that angled
Yes.
section, gotcha.
The
okay.
door, there might be a door to the stairs on day one because I might not finish the upstairs space right away, but long-term, it would be open.
I'm asking because I'm just trying to think of how that would affect, if the mudroom was to be changed to be smaller, how that would affect the rest of the plans. I'm just thinking.
It becomes
that way.
challenging because as you can see in the plan that, coming in that door off the garage it's already tight. So it makes it, a little bit tighter. Like I said, I did my best to squeeze that down and still have it be, serve the purpose for which we intend. Another option is, that Frank mentioned earlier, is I could angle the garage and that would, make it conforming as well. But I felt, if the context of the neighborhood, there's no angled additions, everything is parallel to the street. The angling of that causes construction waste, it causes construction cost because you're now dealing with compound cuts for framing and angled formwork that is not standard, 2-foot formwork. So there's I would rather not angle it because I just don't think it's the right thing for the house and for the neighborhood.
Kurt?
I agree with what you said, Barney. I came before the zoning board years ago with the exact same issue, before I was on the zoning board. And you said no to me.
Did we? I thought we said yes, and you still joined us.
Yeah. I think that I'm with you that, if there's any way to squeeze this down a couple of feet, I would feel better about that.
And again, I don't want to tell you, it has to be the mudroom. It just, to me, that seems logical. But, well, you're an architect. I'm sure you can figure it. And still have the enjoyment of pretty much what you want to construct here and what you want for your family. Kim?
I don't think we've met all three of the requirements here.
Being the hardship.
Exactly, the hardship being the one that has not been met.
Eric?
Yeah, I agree.
Okay, so somebody want to make a motion then?
I move to decline the request for the variance.
Kurt, second it?
Second.
Okay, all in favor? Thank you.
Thanks.
Bear with me, Kim. Whenever you're ready.
Okay.
Well, that's Frank, good.
Yeah, give him a second.
Okay.
Okay, the time being 7:10 PM. Appeal by Amber Orlando-Dauphinee. I hope I'm saying that correctly. Pursuant to Section 10.2.2.1 of the Code of the Town of Foxborough, Massachusetts, Chapter 275, zoning, of a zoning enforcement decision dated September 19th, 2023, from the Town of Foxborough Building Commissioner Zoning Enforcement Officer stating unlawful storage at 180 Main Street is a violation of Chapter 275, zoning Section 3.1.6, Table 3-1, Table of Uses, Use C9 Contractor Yard, and D4 Junkyard Auto Graveyard. The property is located in the R40 Residential and Agricultural District and is not located in any restrictive overlay district.
Okay, before we start, and as long as my voice holds up, excuse me, we're ordinarily a board of 5 people. 2 people on the board are associate members, and that's Eric and Kurt. Kim, Lorraine Brew, who is not here, and I are regular members. Only regular members vote on a zoning matter. When a regular member is not present, or if he or she has to recuse him or herself, then I appoint somebody in that individual's place to vote on the matter. So I'm going to appoint Mr. Hogburg to vote on the matter. However, all 4 of us can and will participate. Now, in order to reverse the enforcement order of the building commissioner, we need the concurring vote of 3 members. In other words, the vote has to be unanimous to decide in your favor. So if 2 of us agree with you and 1 of us doesn't, then the decision of the building commissioner, his enforcement order, is not reversed. Again, we need a unanimous vote in order to reverse that order that is indicated in the letter, which you've obviously seen. Typically, what I would do in an appeal would be to have the building commissioner speak first. He's traveling. He did send us a memorandum earlier this week, and I'm going to ask him to read that into the record.
To Board of Appeals from Scott C. Shippey, Building Commissioner, date of 10/16/2023, subject 180 Main Street. Dear Board members, I have reviewed the appeal application of my determination regarding unauthorized use of land located at 180 Main Street. My determination was based on several complaints regarding 2 construction storage containers and multiple unregistered vehicles. It is my belief that these containers were designed for commercial purposes and are not intended to be utilized as accessory structure in a residential zone. The containers are not in character with the surrounding area and would be more detrimental to the neighborhood if allowed. Further, the containers currently do not meet current setback requirements. As for the unregistered vehicles, I've received documentation that the vehicles have since been registered, therefore are in compliance at this time.
So the only issue we're dealing with has to do with the containers, okay?
Right.
Go ahead.
I'd just like to take a moment to first introduce my husband and my partner. This is Corey Orlando-Dauphinee, and we're here with his mother as well, Tanya Orlando. And I'm going to hand it over to my husband now.
Hello. Thank you all for hearing our appeal tonight. I am Corey Orlando-Dauphinee. I would like to argue our case that our containers are not used for contractor storage. They are not specific to contractor storage, and that it would create a substantial hardship for us to remove them. We purchased them as a supplement to having sheds on the property because we can't afford a proper structure, a permanent structure currently. So instead of renting pods, we decided to purchase some shipping containers outright. Neither of the companies that I chose to purchase the shipping containers from told me, well, when I asked, they said that the containers would not be a zoning violation, that I would not need additional, I wouldn't need additional licensing, or they weren't out of, they told me it wouldn't be an issue, putting them on my property. Through an unfortunate set of circumstances, both of them ended up on the front yard, which was unintended, and I am now aware that they do not meet the setbacks and that they are obviously an obstruction from the street, and we would like to remedy that situation. We'd like to remove them from the front of the property to the back of the property, and just communicate the fact that we store all of our personal property in there. We lost a shed recently. It was wooden. It was 30 years old, and it fell down. We have an amount of inherited tools from family members. We have our own personal yard equipment in there. It's an accumulation of mechanics tools and yard tools. We needed all that stuff to get by, and we can't put a proper permanent structure there. So we thought that this would be an adequate, more sustainable temporary solution for our storage needs. We are willing to we're willing to work with our neighbors and the zoning board if need be to keep the containers, because as we said, it would be a substantial hardship to lose them. We can't afford to put a shed up that will hold everything in there.
I would also like to add something that's not present in our application is our intentions with these containers. Visually, we do not want them to look like shipping containers. By trade, both of us are very familiar with shipping containers and metal. We're both fabricators and artists by trade, and I intend for that container to look as a part of the neighborhood with siding and wood and to be integrated into the environment, which it will be in further back in the yard.
While, if I may.
Yeah.
While simultaneously being ultimately temporary. The whole goal of having these storage containers on our property is that they can be removed at any time. We can't afford to remove them currently, but we would like to remove them in the future in place of a permanent structure.
Additionally, our hopes is to maybe open up a discussion for the use of shipping containers as building structures, and at what point is a shipping container no longer a shipping container? Because once you remove those numbers, it is just a vessel, and there are plenty of examples of existing structures in other states and, you know, neighboring states even. I'm familiar with one, and I am close friends with the contractor who built it, an architectural design firm in Providence and Onlyville. And I see them as such great potential, and again, I'd like to open the conversation and see where your opinions lie.
So in the statement that you provided with the application, or as part of the application, you indicated that the containers include tools of our own which pertain to our trades and hobbies. What are the trades, and where do you engage in them? And what kind of tools are we talking about?
So, if we're going to address, likewise, the auto graveyard, I am a mechanic by blood, I'm a fabricator, welder by trade. I like to work on my cars as a hobby. I certainly can't fix any of them without tools. So, and I don't have a garage. The house was built in 1932. We actually recently inherited it from my grandmother who passed away, my mother and I, and my wife. We are working through getting the house, cleaned up, looking towards renovations. We're looking to, move forward with the house, and we can't do that in the capacity that it existed before. We couldn't do. The wooden shed rotted and fell down, and even when it was standing, it was filled to the brim, and it was unsustainable. We need more space to move forward with the house.
So the work that you do on cars, is that in the yard itself?
No, currently he's
Only
at
on my personal vehicles. I'm not, that's also part of this, is that we by no means take contracts or make any amount of money off of these containers. They're not used to store. It's all personal. It's all for our stuff, our hobbies.
But our professions are, he works
Part of it.
on heavy diesel mechanics and builds lift kits for trucks. I'm an arts educator at the steel yard in Providence, so I have my own set of tools, and I am a 1099 employee through them, so I have to transport my tools back and forth. For the most part, they fit in my vehicle, but
It's all our own stuff. None of our jobs are occupations that provide, tools and equipment. It's all our own personal protective equipment, our own PPE, and our own tools that we bring to and from or use in circumstances.
But you're not working on vehicles owned by somebody else for a fee?
No, I have a
No.
40-hour work week. I work at I build trucks for a living.
Okay.
No, not out of my yard, though.
and none of my profession takes place at the house either.
No, it's all storage. It's all our stuff that we've, taken with us as hobby. It's our identity. It's part of
So for the shipping containers that I see here, I see that when you bought the containers, did they have the fluorescent lights installed and the electricity?
Inside them? No, those are stick-up Amazon lights and some magnets. That's just all run to an extension cord. There's no.
So if I see like a workbench with a vise and the lights are like, do you do work in those containers? Like, is that like a space you use to do work?
Or the house, like when I need to cut some wood or work on my cars, I put stuff in the vise and work technically
It's the
out of them.
equivalent of a
but it's-
garage to us.
Yeah, it's more like my garage. I'm not doing any amount of professional work out of there.
So I just want to try to understand. So I'm hearing both that it's a temporary solution, but also, integrating it into the neighborhood with wood siding, et cetera. So that sounds a little bit more permanent than temporary. So just kind of want to understand what you're thinking of for the time frame.
So
So the exterior appearance of the containers as individual structures can change without
Being
inhibiting
affixed.
them from being able to be moved.
basically, there's, to the point she was asking earlier, is at what point is it no longer a shipping container? There's a large departure between, painting them, putting wood siding on them, or cutting them completely to pieces and bolting them to the ground, or affixing them to a foundation, to a concrete pad. These can still, if we paint them or put siding on them, it's not gonna inhibit us from picking them up and dragging them out of the yard. If we affix it to the ground, if we were to put it on a concrete slab, like I know California has laws that it becomes a permanent structure as it pertains to a shipping container specifically, because they use these as houses out there, is that once it is affixed to a concrete pad, then it is a permanent structure. Until then, it is mobile, it's a temporary structure.
But there's a long way between a shipping container and a usable or livable structure.
Right. It's,
Right. So when you buy a shipping container, it's not like a given that you're going to be able to turn that into a livable structure, because codes have to be adhered to.
right,
All
we're
of
not
these things,
claiming, pardon me, we're not interested in turning it into a livable structure by any means, at any point in its existence in Foxborough.
So what would you would just use it for storage?
Until, we want to build a barn eventually. I want to move these containers off of the property eventually, once we have, because we just inherited the house and we're dealing with, all of that turnover and adjusting to that. We'd eventually like to put a barn on the property, but that requires zoning and having an amount of funds. That it requires money, and we don't have time or money for that right now. So I bought some shipping containers to put our stuff in.
As it relates to the temporary piece, how long have they been there? I wasn't aware when they were initially installed.
The beige one's been there since June, and the orange one has been there for 5 years. The only difference is the orange one was on the backside of the property before. Nobody complained about it there.
When was it moved to the front?
When the tan container came onto the property, when I purchased the tan container.
So I think you said there was some unfortunate circumstances that put it in the front yard, but one was already in the backyard?
Yeah, so the person that dropped off the tan container was supposed to bring it to the backyard. They were supposed to be able to put it in the backyard where it was, appropriate to setbacks and not seen, not an eyesore. But they got onto the property and told me that they could not do that, and they did not feel comfortable doing that. So I said, "Put it where you can, and we'll deal with it." It was a fiasco.
So how did the other one get from the backyard to the front yard?
I dragged it up. So I thought it would be easier. That was on my part also.
Could you have dragged the other one back?
I should have dragged them, yeah. I should have moved the other one to the back instead of bringing them both to the front yard, but here we are before you tonight.
So you're saying that one of the containers has been on the property for several years?
Correct.
And nobody has raised an issue, to your knowledge, about it?
Not to my knowledge.
Tim, questions?
Not at the moment.
Eric, anything else?
I think we've addressed all of my questions.
So what I want to do now is open the hearing to the public. You're going to have to come, whoever wants to speak is going to have to come to the podium, and you will need to identify yourself by name and address. And I believe we have somebody on Zoom, but we'll start with the people in the room here. Sir?
My My name is Jay Fitton. I live across the street at 177 Main Street. I agree. The orange container was in the back for 5 years. I had no problem with that. But the containers out front are a major eyesore, and I think they distract from the neighborhood. Okay? I think a lot of people in the neighborhood try to take a lot of pride in their yard, and it's just, I really don't want a business, and that's what it kind of looks like across the way, right? And as long as the cars are registered and meet the requirements, I have no complaints about that.
Okay,
That's all.
great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes?
Hi, everyone. Kristy Yankee, 12 Vandoorn Ave.
I'm sorry,
Kristy Yankee, like the baseball team. 12 Vandoorn Ave. And I feel bad because you guys seem super nice. I think since I moved in, there's been at least one storage container. And while maybe the neighbor across the street, didn't mind that, it was on more towards our neighborhood, because our neighborhood our HOA is behind the dwelling. And here and there, we would notice the containers, and I know someone passed away, so there's new folks living there, but there was a time where there were like people partying on top of these containers too. But this could predate the current residents. And then, as we've discussed, the second container came, and it's an incredible eyesore. And I think that using the property in a way that's not consistent with its intended zoning could create a real problem as far as our home values in the neighborhood behind in our properties. If one of us were to try to sell one of our homes that, we've worked really hard to cultivate the HOA. It's a rather newish neighborhood. I think a potential buyer taking the corner onto Vandoorn might think twice about purchasing one of our homes. Not knowing how nice the owners are or anything like that. And we've had a couple of incidents of some of the car projects, the cars being parked in the neighborhood on the street, and even within our own HOA, we have rules within our HOA to not have cars on the street without kind of going through the neighbors. And so then just to we didn't know where it was coming from really at first. And I feel bad if someone has a hobby and works hard fixing cars, and that's fine. I think keeping the integrity of our neighborhood would be appreciated. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Shane Palmer. I'm actually 5 Vandoorn. So I'm the vice president, and Tracy Vasali is the president of our HOA. So I'm here representing pretty much the neighborhood and just letting you guys know how everybody else is feeling. My wife's an art teacher. I get it. So I can appreciate that. With that being said, they are temporary. For them to be temporary structures that have been sitting there for upwards of 5 years, and then another one coming in and dragging it out, and they are an eyesore. They're temporary. They're not intended to be there long term. I know it's a hardship to build something, but it's also a hardship for us to look at that. I'll tell you flat out, Kristy had represented or mentioned that property values. I've had my house looked at many, many times. I'm right there. And I've had it appraised many times for a simple resale, whatever it may be. And they've brought that up every single time. When it was sitting in the back, it's documented that there was a fire back there. There was again, predating some of you people that are living there now, there was a stabbing there. There were some really difficult things that went on. So I have 2 young kids there. That was a concern. So I'm not saying that's the case now, but what I am saying is that is something that it concerns us. It should concern me. It should concern the town. It should concern you guys, and I know you guys have been great. We've spoken a few times, and we've been fine with that. And we're very cordial to each other. The whole fact of that being there, it just sets up a lot that just doesn't fit in that neighborhood, and that concerns me.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone on Zoom who wishes to speak?
No, she just,
There's other people,
Okay,
there's two other people on Zoom, but I don't know if they're just watching or.
okay. All right, why don't we do this? Any further final comments? And then we'll see if we have any final questions.
I mean, speaking candidly, as for the integrity of the neighborhood, I have lived there for 27 years, my entire life. I've lived there. And that, yeah, I used to have fires out behind my house as a kid, and then a neighborhood moved in behind me. So it's just kind of a stark reality being told that, you know, I'm affecting the neighborhood's value. But that's beside the point. If I'm willing to put them in a place where nobody can see them, that abides by all of the setbacks, and if it is an issue of eyesore, then I'm more than willing to do whatever it takes to alleviate that. By all means, and if you look at the map that we put in the packets, it details where we would otherwise have the containers that is actually, you know, it abuts nobody but us.
It's on the opposite end, adjacent to Vandoorn. So previously, the red box was sitting on the edge
On the
of the
street
property,
side, which
which
also
was
probably
Vandoorn.
wouldn't have met setbacks if, you know, we were ever contacted or asked about this. This is the first I've ever heard of or been approached about any of the grievances. So
To that, I also want to take a moment just to thank everybody who came to speak, and I greatly appreciate you coming and voicing your opinions, and it's been amazing to hear from you, and
I'm sorry, I'm on Zoom. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I don't know if anybody,
Yeah, someone's on Zoom.
yeah, you got to speak into the
I'm
microphone.
sorry. It was an interesting tap to speak, done speaking deal, so I was a little bit behind, but I listened to everybody. I'm sorry. My name is Scott Goldberg. I live on 6 Vandoorn Avenue. I do pass by these shipping containers every day and always wondering, and also often there are, you know, not lately, but cars parked on Vandoorn, as subsequently as Kristy said, you know, for more than 24 hours at a time. Obviously, as the leaves fall, these shipping containers are more visible. As anyone guests home, anyone who lives on Vandoorn or Western Avenue, see these every day. And I feel for the current owners who seem to be put into this situation that did not have this home before. But you know, these are containers that do not belong in residential neighborhoods, according to my opinion, whether it's law or not. But hopefully they can be moved. I know new owners at 2 Vandoorn who aren't here, you know, stare at them every day. It's just not a residential feel, and definitely is a negative, whether it optically for anybody who is in the neighborhood. And we definitely would appreciate any action be taken, and we'll, you know, obviously work with whatever you think. But that's just another opinion.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Any further questions that we have, Kim?
I do have one question. So looking at the map that you gave us, I can see that where the shipping containers are, but then there's a trailer.
So that was a 40-foot trailer that was previously on our property that we have had there since the 70s.
Okay.
So that was zoned on our property. We were allowed to have a trailer on
Okay.
our property.
That is not there.
No longer there. We had it
Okay.
removed many, many years ago. It's no longer there. It was there when the map was made.
This was from 2010, the map.
The map, yeah.
Oh,
That was the last time the land
Right.
was assessed.
Oh, I didn't realize it was 2010. Thank you.
Thank
Okay,
you.
I just wasn't, okay, thank you. Thank you. I think that's all the questions I have.
Okay. Eric, any questions, further questions?
I do not have any further questions.
Kurt?
When you said you were considering moving the shipping containers to someplace where they don't abut anybody, where would that be on the map I'm looking at?
In the back between 180 and 184. So technically on 184, but abutting 180 and 184, so we would be the only abutters.
And we are also partial owners to 184.
No other questions, Barney.
Okay.
I'm sorry, and how does that work? Where do I see that, the 180, 184?
184, we're not partial owners, but we are family friends of the neighbor, and they are very close to us and have no issues with
It's the abutting
our
property,
containers
so
being there.
So the one on here that is,
to our left-hand side.
okay, is that David and
David and Marcia Manouchian.
Marcia, that's what you're talking about? Okay.
So,
Okay, thank you.
we don't like the lack of privacy ourselves, having them out front. I understand that it's an eyesore. I don't like having them up there. I immediately regretted having the second one moved up front. So I'd like to move them to the back where they are less visible, if that is possible. I'd like to do whatever I can to keep them, because it would, like I said, substantial hardship if we had to move all that stuff in the storage.
Okay, Kim, do you want to make a motion to close the public portion?
I move that we close the public portion.
Eric, second it?
Second.
Okay, all in favor? Again, in the application, the premise you were making is that we should approve these because they're accessory structures. And I think there are two bylaw provisions that really are dispositive of that issue, that question. One is the, definition of accessory structure, which says a structure customarily incidental and subordinate to the principal structure that is located on the same lot as the principal structure, except any structures for any agricultural use. A detached garage, I think, is customarily incidental and subordinate. A shed is customarily incidental and subordinate to the principal dwelling. I don't think that a container, and that's whether you dress it up, paint it, put wood siding on it, or what have you, is customarily incidental and subordinate. And I, for one, am not willing to create a precedent by going that far. The second provision is in section 3.1.7, and those are the notes to the table of use regulations. And note 8 says, unless otherwise authorized by the special permit granting authority, the architectural design of any accessory structure and the type and color of the external materials used in its construction shall be comparable to the principal structure to which it is incidental and subordinate. And again, I don't think that anybody can say that a steel container is of a comparable architectural design and is utilizing materials that are comparable to a principal dwelling, which it would be, again, theoretically incidental and subordinate to. So to my mind, the containers would not constitute an accessory structure, a permissible accessory structure. Kim, you want to go next?
Yes, Barney, I agree with what you just said, and I also, appreciate something that the applicant said, which was about, opening a conversation, and that's a really interesting idea. We are the Board of Appeals, though, so we are not the group for that. But I understand, it's a very interesting question. I have absolutely no idea how that would go, but that's not us, is my understanding. But I do agree with you. What you said, Barney, I'm not sure that this would constitute an accessory structure.
Okay. Eric?
I agree with that, and to further that, I mean, I've seen throughout the country the uses of these containers and the pretty awesome things they can do, and make out of them, but unfortunately, we're stuck with the laws and bylaws that we have here in Foxborough. And if that's something you wanted to pursue as far as an open conversation and pursuing that, I would applaud that. But unfortunately, I agree with Barney and Kim.
Kurt?
Yeah, really agree with what you've been saying there, and I feel for you, and I understand your position, but I don't, the main thing is, well, a couple of things, you know, if we allow this, what's to say that there's not 20 shipping containers there, or the lot next door, so I don't like the precedent that it sets, and although I do understand that shipping containers could conceivably be turned into, you know, structures that are livable or usable, you know, there's a long way from where we are with these containers to something that could be like that. There would have to be all manner of codes and living standards enforced, so, yeah.
So what I want to do is, and as Kim and Kurt probably remember, we were told by town council in another matter as to how to state a motion in this kind of manner. So let me just read the motion. It would be to reverse the September 19, 2023 enforcement order of Building Commissioner Scott Shippey as requested by the application of Amber Orlando-Dauphinee. A yes vote, and what I want to do is to do this by roll call vote. A yes vote would be to reverse Mr. Shippey's order, or in other words, to uphold the appeal. A no vote would be to uphold Mr. Shippey's order, in other words, to deny the appeal. Okay, any questions on that? So again, the motion would be to reverse the September 19, 2023 enforcement order of Building Commissioner Scott Shippey as requested by the application of Amber Orlando-Dauphinee.
So moved.
Second it?
Second.
Okay, and I'm going to do this by roll call. So Kim?
No.
Eric?
No.
And Barney? No. Within the next 2 weeks, we're going to draft and sign a decision, and Diana will be filing it with the town clerk, and that starts an appeal period. It's a 20-day appeal period. If you want to appeal our decision, the appeal would either be to the Massachusetts Land Court or the Norfolk Superior Court. The appeal has to be taken within that 20-day period of time. Okay?
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So, Diana didn't send the minutes out.
Right. I
started
wrote
reading them.
them,
I
I
started
talked to
reading
you
them. They
about
look
them,
very
and never sent them. So I apologize, I will send them out to you guys, and we'll put it on the next agenda.
So we know we have one definite for next month.
One definite, one maybe, and I don't know if there's anything else.
And the one maybe would be another group home.
Okay.
So, this one would be on Bailey Street, which is sort of like in the back
It's
of
behind 106.
106.
Same owner? Same?
Different entity altogether.
Oh, interesting.
Different entity. Okay. Motion to adjourn.
I move we adjourn.
Anyone want to make a second?
Second.
All in favor? We are done.